Go ahead. All right. First of all, I just wanted to, I have a lot of questions. I ponder a lot of things, but free will kind of perplexes me a little bit. Why did God even give us free will? Why do we have free will? Some thoughts? Remember, I know there's a lot of knowledge out here, and I want us to interact, and there's some still water running really deep, too. But why did God give us free will?
I think he didn't want us to be like puppets.
Okay.
And I think sometimes, like, you think about your own children, or like if you teach and your students and things like that, if they're doing something just because you told them to do it and they know they have to do it, it really doesn't mean that much. But if they do it on their own free will, or come up and learn something, or tell you something, or say something, you know they really meant it. And so I think he wanted, he didn't want to just have us just because we had to.
Yeah, good. What else? Any other thoughts on why God gave us free will? Any other thoughts? Catherine?
Somebody else is talking.
What? Go ahead.
I wonder if that helps us understand how powerful it was for Jesus to make the decision to willingly give up his life. That if he was completely human and completely divine at the same time, he had free will. And that he still had, even though that was God's will and God's plan, he still had to choose to do it. And
Good thoughts. Anyway, somebody else was going to say something over here.
I was just saying,
Yeah.
he wants to be wanted.
Wanted
to be wanted.
To be wanted, yeah. And again, to make choices, right? He wanted to give us the ability to do that. Okay, so if God didn't give us free will, and that's assuming, we believe everything he does is good, would there still be suffering here? I don't know, I was just pondering. If he didn't give us free will, and assuming, that we believe everything he does is good, would we still have suffering on earth? What do you think?
We might still be living in the Garden of Eden with everybody that, from the very beginning.
So everything might really be
Because
good?
there would be no death.
Okay.
Because they wouldn't have sinned.
But there also wouldn't be any joy.
Wouldn't be any joy. Who said that? And you say that because?
Because if we can't make any decisions for ourselves, we're not following of our own volition. We're following because of his commands.
Okay, kind of a little bit on what Heather was. Okay. Any other thoughts?
if everything was perfect, like it was pretty much in the garden, we wouldn't long for heaven.
Okay.
This would be as good as it
Good
gets.
thought. Excellent thoughts. Yeah. Anybody else? Some other things I just think about, like, so, and I think Brother Bill kind of touched on this in a sermon a while back, but why did God put the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the midst of the garden if he didn't want Adam and Eve to eat it?
He wanted them to have a choice.
He wanted them to have a choice. Yes. What else? Any other thoughts on why he would have done that?
You can't have faith unless you obey.
Okay, and bringing in obedience, yeah, which could also sort of lead to testing. Oh, looking at Susan, if y'all weren't here, Max did an awesome job tonight, so he nailed it, and kudos to you and Albert. Anyway, yeah, and there again, I don't know, do angels have free will? I mean, could they? Some probably made bad decisions, didn't they? Yeah. And one more thing I was just thinking about. Can suffering be an aspect of free will? Can suffering be an aspect of free will? Catherine says yes, because...
Sometimes I don't think our circumstances only define our suffering. I think our perception of them, or and not, it's all in your head, not that, but that you can choose to see your suffering as you look for the good that can come out of it. just like Paul did in Philippians.
Right.
Or you can choose to make it extra hard on yourself.
Okay, yeah. Yep.
We have a choice a lot of our choices can bring suffering.
Mhm.
Now,
Or other
There-
people's choices.
or other people's choices can bring suffering. Because, we have the choice of drugs or alcohol or driving like crazy or whatever. Those choices can bring suffering to us.
Yeah.
Most of us won't go through a good part of that because we stay away from drugs and alcohol.
Okay, okay, good thoughts. Hazel?
I think this just follows what Catherine says, but it's not always the circumstance that results in suffering. Sometimes it's what you tell yourself about the circumstance.
Yeah.
You know how you see people who experience the very same thing, and one person, it seems to make them strong and grateful and appreciative and determined, and someone else, the exact circumstance makes them bitter, makes them, hopeless and cynical. And the difference is what if they tell themselves, what thinking, which is what we're getting at, taking captive your thought. So what thought are you allowing in about this event?
Exactly.
And some of those thoughts take us down a path that's pretty dark, and some of those thoughts point to hope and God and life,
Yeah. Excellent, excellent, excellent. I appreciate that, Sharon. Y'all have some really, really good thoughts. Anyway, I'm just always thinking of stuff. But, to me, sometimes, if we think on those kind of things, our mind's going to be in a better place. There again, I mean, just, grab something out of the Bible, why? It's not bad to doubt. I mean, don't deny, but, and question and ask. And, I mean, there's so much in here. And, and actually the more you stay, at least with me, the more I study, the more I want to know, and I realize I don't know. And, I mean, it's actually a cool book. I always tell the grandkids when they talk about the Bible, it's the best book you'll ever read. And don't forget that. It's got all your answers. Anyway, so, just obviously, like Catherine was saying, Paul suffered, didn't he? But he did it with joy. And that's kind of what we've been talking about. Look at your worksheet real quick. I was going to write down more, but number 1, what emotions can easily overcome us when we're suffering? When we're really suffering and going through yuck, what emotions can come over us? Doubt, yes. What else? Fear. What else?
Grief.
Grief, yes. Anger, yes. What else?
Self-pity.
Self-pity, yes.
Paranoia.
Yeah, paranoia. Mm-hmm. Depression, yes. What else? Any others? Cynicism.
When Hazel said bitterness.
Yes, bitterness. What else? Anxiety. Shame. Anything else? Worry. A lot of, it just comes upon us, doesn't it? I mean, and it can take over. So, real quick, I want you to break in small groups again, 3 to 4, it'll be good. And look at number 2. How does true suffering strengthen our relationship with the Father when we allow it? Kind of like how Hazel was talking about, some will and some won't. And help us kind of persevere through the anguish and the pain. I'm going to give you 5 minutes, so quickly circle up 2 or 3 together and just discuss question number 2.
Y'all turn this way.
There goes this book. Depend on your more. There goes this. Yeah, we depend on God more and more. It really sucks. And also thank and for doing good in life or not, we should always keep that same level of dependence.
To strengthen your relationship.
A different kind of.
Have y'all got? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. We're kind of running out of time, so you're going to have to take that one home with you. Yeah. Okay. So let me ask, how does that make your relationship stronger when you really, really suffer? Give me some of your input that y'all discussed. Lisa?
I depend on God more, pray more, you know.
You
Well, I was
wouldn't pray more. Mm-hmm.
Well, I was telling them no matter like if we are suffering or doing well in life, it should be equal. It shouldn't be more because we're going through a hard time. It should be a balance.
It's a balance. Okay, good, good. Any other thoughts? How's it strengthen your relationship with the Father?
I just said some of the hardest times in my life are some of the times I've been closest to God. It helps you
Excellent.
lean on Him.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe you don't always to that degree.
Good, good. Anything else?
I feel like it's sometimes a relief to realize that all the things are not in your control, it's in God's hands and He has the situation and it's just kind of okay, there's nothing else I can do but to just give this to Him. And that's
Right,
all I
as
can do.
you let go. Yeah, awesome. Anything else? Any other thoughts? Terrific. Y'all are doing awesome. Okay, we're running out of time. Who's got Philippians 3:3? If you will read that, please. Not Philippians, Psalms 3:3. My bad.
I have it, Kathy.
Okay.
But you, O Lord, are a shield for me, my glory, and the one who lifts up my head.
Okay, almost going to Ashley's point. He's there. He's going to lift us up. Sometimes when things are the darkest, the dimmest, you just got to look up because He's right there. He's never left us, right? He always tells us, I'm never going to leave you. All right. Now, who has Acts 9:15 through 16? If you will read it. Okay. Patrice, Bettina.
But the Lord said to him, Go, for he is a chosen vessel of mine to bear my name before Gentiles, kings, and the children of Israel. For I will show him how many things he must suffer for my name's sake.
Okay. Talking about Ananias going to Paul, and he's going to tell him how many things you're going to suffer for my name's sake, because he wants him to go to the Gentiles. And I couldn't help but think of the Mission Impossible thing, this tape will self-destruct in 5 minutes if you choose to accept the mission. Well, yeah, you think about it. If you knowingly knew that you're going to experience what Paul was going to experience, would you take that mission? All the suffering that he went through, and you knew that was going to happen to you, would you do it? Be kind of tough, wouldn't it? But what do you think he saw the big picture? And on top of all that suffering, let me throw this in real quick. How many books of the New Testament did he write? There's 27. How many did he write that we can definitely say he wrote? 13. Yeah, 13, almost half. While he's suffering and going through all the things that were happening to him. I mean, that's, is that living like Christ? That's definitely, yes. Okay. Let's see. Who has Philippians 2:12, B through 13, kind of more half the verse of 12.
Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you, both to will and to work for his good pleasure.
And that's what, Paul was promoting the whole time. He wants us to be blameless. He wants us to be with God. I mean, because that's where he was going, definitely. And he wasn't going to let anything hold him back. So, he was encouraging the Philippians, his brethren, in the same way. And one thing, too, he was trying to tell them to beware of things that were going to hold them back. And, look at Philippians 2:4, because part of that was like divisions. Who's got 2:4? Philippians 2:4. 14, my bad.
Do all things without grumbling or disputing.
Okay. Is this anything new? Go back to the wilderness. What were they doing?
Grumbling.
Yeah, why? Why do you think all that got started anyway? It came out of Egypt. What do you think happened?
They just forgot.
Forgot. Forgot what, Catherine?
Forgot how bad it was. And they remembered it as better.
They forgot all everything that they were doing and the hot and all, they forgot about it, didn't they? And then, did they lose sight of the big picture?
Got
Yeah.
all the things that God did too. I mean, all the plagues and the Red Sea and all that. And
Exactly. I mean, that quick. I mean, you were basically in bondage, and then, you get out, and God does all those things for you, and then
They just remembered the good things they had while they were there.
and they got discontented, didn't they? Dissatisfied. Ashley?
And maybe also they were thinking like they were going to get to this better place a lot faster than they were, They're
It's like, yeah,
okay,
where's
sure,
the-
You got us out of here, but like, now what?
God's going to take you to the land of milk and honey now, right? That instant yeah, no, that wasn't it. Okay, all right, excellent. Also, let's look at who's got Ephesians 4:31 through 32.
I do.
Okay.
And let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you, along with all malice. Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you.
Okay. Again, in Ephesians here, he's telling, to be tenderhearted, be forgiven, look over all this stuff. Are we going to let, like, griefs and somebody doing us wrong hold us back from heaven? I mean, not that it's easier said than done, but I mean that, he was really, because, there again in Philippians, who was he talking to? Were they believers or unbelievers? They were the believers, right? The brethren, right? So there was, still going on anyway, right? Oh, that makes me think of another question. I was thinking, why do you think, I'm sorry, I'm bouncing all around. Why do you think Satan approached Eve instead of Adam in the Garden of Eden? I was like, what do you think? Ever thought about that?
She might be the weaker of the two.
Okay, she could be the weaker of the two. Any other thoughts?
She could maybe, he knew she could persuade him.
Yeah.
Easier than he could persuade her.
Yeah, I didn't think, Tim's like, if you're going to get somebody and go through a woman. It's like, that's true. It probably would have been a little bit more difficult if she approached Adam. He might not could have persuaded her as much either. Yeah, Satan knows what he's doing. I'm sorry, I got way off track. But with that said, he wants them also to beware of incorrect teachings or thinking. I mean, this is the brethren. Who has Philippians 3:3?
Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, let each other esteem each other better than themselves.
Is that? Let's see. That may.
Sorry, that was 2-3, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
3:3.
said, right?
Yeah, I probably didn't change it on there. My bad.
3:3?
Yes,
Okay, sorry.
that was my mistake. I thought I corrected.
Okay, 3:3, second.
I think. Is that?
For we are the circumcision which worship God in spirit and rejoice in Christ Jesus and have no confidence in the flesh.
That wasn't where I was going either. Let's see. Where's the one about beware the, 3:2. I had it backwards. All right, I'm sorry.
Beware of dogs, beware of evil workers, beware of the 32. I'm so sorry, now I'm confused.
It's me.
Um,
That's what I do to Tim all the time.
What is it?
3:2, Philippians 3:2.
Okay, 3:2. Beware, is that it?
Yes.
Beware of dogs, beware of evil workers, beware of the concision.
Yes, yes. Yeah, we were just right above it. Okay. Yeah, he's warning them, again, to watch out for people that could be, misleading. Look at 3:18. Who's got 3:18?
For many flock of whom I have told you often, and now tell you even weeping, that they are the enemies of the cross of Christ.
Okay. And notice there again, he's warning them again. What did he say? This time with tears. Please stay focused, stay on God's truth, okay? Not what somebody else is trying to pull you away from, because who's behind all that? Satan. Remember that menacing picture Kathy had up here and stuff. He's that evil. And then as long as we stay obedient to God, like take him at his word, his no is a no. Who's got 2 Corinthians 12:9-10?
But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I'm strong.
Yes, yes. I guess we could reason, would Paul have been more effective if he had taken the thorn out? Maybe, could he? Does it matter? No, because who's got Isaiah 55:8-9?
For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts.
Yes. It doesn't matter what we think, does it? All that matters is what God thinks. And that's what we've got to stick to. Sometimes it's like, well, I kind of think it says, you can speculate, but when it gets down to it, you got to go back here, and whatever he says goes. His no is a no. Okay, so our responsibility in encouraging each other, so that we can all live for Christ. There again, we've got to be aware of Satan's tactics and the tools that he tries to control. And that's one thing we've kind of been trying to talk about in here. He'll try to control our reaction to a circumstance. What were some of the ones that we talked about? Like, for one thing, thinking of ourselves, which you guys did excellent this whole last week. You were thinking of another person, praying for them. So Satan tries to get us to think of ourselves all the time. He tries to distract us, right? Shelley was talking about, stop the noise, silence. He tries to make us cynical, skeptical. I wonder what they're up to. I don't really know if that motive's right. All of these are just, and some of them are just kind of undermining type of things. Isolation. I'm good about that. I can take care of this. I don't need anybody. Look at this connection. It's awesome. Every time I think that way, then I get in something like this, and I'm like shamefaced. We need this. God wants us to have each other in that connection. Complacency. It doesn't matter. It'll take. See, you guys were intentional last week because you were thinking of somebody else. That's awesome. Because I'm guilty of not always being intentional about stuff. My family can tell me I sort of fly by the seat of my pants a lot of times, so I'm trying really hard to be more intentional. Then victimhood. Oh, woe is me. Why does everything always happen to me? Really? Again? Stuff's just going to happen. Our boys grew up, well, it's not fair, get over it. That's just the way, it's how you deal with it. And then anxiety. I think Diane's going to touch on that. You get so anxious, and it's like it freezes. You're frozen. It's like, I can't even think sometimes when I let myself, not to mention you're breathing really quick and then you're getting tingly all over. It's not worth it. You know, we got to trust. I know I'm going through this so fast. But anyway, real quick, what's the difference between joy and happiness? Can somebody speak to that? What is happiness? The kind of the root, I think I read, of happiness is hap, which means chance. So what would be, what would you call happiness?
It's kind of dependent on your circumstances.
Yes. Happiness is going to really depend on your circumstances, okay? As opposed to joy. Joy would be more of a, not self-centered, but self-centered. Nobody can touch it. Nobody can steal your joy unless you let them, right? So that's the difference. And that, you know, it has to be what Paul was feeling. I mean, he had this inner joy amongst everything he was dealing with. And of course, he knew what he was living for.
Think of it, joy, as an internal celebration.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Yeah.
And the happiness is momentarily.
Right.
It is, at the moment, you can be happy, but 10 minutes later, you may be in tears. But the joy is, as Denise said, internal.
And not that it's not good to be happy, it's good to be happy, but we need to have, right, that internal joy, and that's what's going to push us through the tough times and everything. Good, excellent. And of course then, you know, we need to evaluate our own incorrect thinkings and harness God's truth. Let's see. I think we've got time to do this. I need about at least 2 volunteers or kind of witnesses. What we're going to do here. Somebody, I need 2. One could be useful, one could be less useful. That's fine.
It's obvious which category I fall in.
Okay. All right, get on up here, Miss Catherine. Okay, I guess I'll just do it here. Well, that'd be easier to see up here.
Well, I'm not worried.
Okay, yay!
Come to.
Okay, all right. This is hopefully going to be a little experiment about surface tension. All right, and what surface tension is, it is the property of the surface of a liquid, or water, okay, and it allows to resist any external forces, okay, and due to the cohesiveness, the hanging on of the molecules in there, okay, because if you're looking at this water, all up underneath there, all the molecules are just pulling against each other, so it would say 0 force. But what about the ones on the surface? Are they, what about above? All that is air, right? So like if you don't have as much to cling on to, you're going to cling tight, right? Okay, so the surface here is just really clinging tight, okay? It's very cohesive. It's almost like an elastic, almost like type of membrane. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, I want to, let's see, Heather. You got good steady hands? Okay. We're going to take this little needle, because mine are shaking right now. All right. I'll just when you use that, or you can do your hands. And easily see if it should float on the top of the water.
Just lay it on the top.
Just, yeah, lay it on the top. Don't break the surface,
Okay.
but try to just lay it on the top. Oh, it went through. Try it again.
See, I was not gentle.
It's okay.
Hold on.
Do you want to wipe it off? Okay. But because the needle, even though it's light, it should be heavier than the water, right? Yeah. Just your hand. What's happening?
It's floating.
It's floating. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay. Take those out. Okay. Let's try this with.
There we go.
All right, Kathy, if you will just put that paper clip in there, but you can just put it in first, just to what do you think will happen? It drops, right? Okay. All right. Now, what we're gonna do? Get a little bit of tissue. Just gonna lay down there. All right, and then I got another. I'm gonna lay on top of that. Oh, no, it's broke up. Okay. All right. And then supposedly, well, this may be sticking. If we kind of, what's happening, ladies?
It's floating.
It's
on the
floating,
top.
it's up there on top, right? Okay, it's got that surface tension up there. Okay, now,
Should we zoom in the camera?
let me
It was pretty impressive.
let me do one more thing real quick, okay? Thank you. See, all right, now, one more thing. I'll put some pepper on here real quick. Okay. What's the pepper doing?
It's floating.
The pepper's floating, okay. Now, I'm gonna take this fork, I was trying to find, this is just some dish liquid, soap, whatever. I'm gonna put it on this. Any thoughts on what might happen?
Is it gonna sing? Is the
Have
pepper
you done
gonna
this put
grab it?
together? What happened?
It all ran away.
It just all went away,
ran away.
right? Okay, awesome. Thank y'all so much. Okay, so my spiritual application to this is our surface tension could be very cohesive, especially if it's with one another, okay? We can be tight, but Satan will penetrate it. He's going to try. He's going to try really hard. And sometimes I feel like we don't know that. It's kind of like I had the privilege, and I'll call you out, Susan, but going to mission trip with Susan and Albert and being on their team, and we were just kind of going through things. And she said to me, and nobody had ever said that before, it's always these little things. She goes, because we were talking about the lesson, and I don't know if I said story, she goes, well, it's actually a Bible lesson. And I'm like, that's so true. And ever since then, anytime, especially I'm teaching children, it's a Bible lesson. It's not just a story. It's real. Satan's real. Thank you for that, Susan. But anyway, so no matter how cohesive we are, he's going to try to penetrate us. Look at Philippians 4:8. Who's got that one?
I have 4:18, but I think it's.
Oh, thank you.
I got it.
Or no, that was incorrect too. I think it's 4:8. Sorry.
Finally, brothers, whatever is true,
Yes.
whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things.
Thank you. And that's what we got to do. That's where our mind has to go, because when Satan tries to penetrate our cohesive serpentine, no tension, no telling how tight and how we think we got it together, he's going to slip in. Because remember, he always comes menacing, like Kathy said, but he's also in a sheep's clothing, how we least expect it. And most of it's going to go through where? Our mind. Like I coined this phrase to Brenda, stinking thinking, right? So anyway, real quick, is that the last bill? Oh, okay. So after you recognize these negative tactics that Satan uses, how we offset it? Y'all already showed you use humility instead of self-centeredness. You silence. You go and you kind of just get away if you need to. And then you've got, instead of cynicism, delight. Okay, delight in things. Sometimes if you're in a funk, I don't know, I just go outside and look. I mean, you got to delight at creation. And then, of course, instead of isolating yourself, we got to connect. We got to connect. And then instead of just being complacent about stuff, you got to be intentional, which again, y'all were doing that last week. And instead of always feeling sorry for ourselves, what do we need to do? We need to be grateful. Another example, Sister Ann Thomas, who is Catherine in here? I guess her grandmother. I don't know, well, after her husband passed, one thing she told me, and it just meant so much to me because I know she was having a hard time, but she told me she went out every morning and looked for something new. I mean, is that not, she was intentionally going out to do something, wasn't playing the victim, and then she was up here, Brenda's probably got one of the little totes, the fruit totes, that she was up here connecting and making those things. I mean, what an example of, she was like, I guess you could say, taking the opportunity to go up a ladder instead of a shovel of despair, kind of how Hazel was saying. Anyway, all in all, to repattern our thoughts, I think sometimes we just need a pause. It's on your sheet too. Just pause and, first give praise to God and His creation. Be attentive to His Word. Think about stuff. Think about things you've read and question it and study it. And understand your place in God's plan. What's He want us all to be and in the future. He wants us all with him, doesn't he? Okay? All of us. And he wants us to bring others with him. Seek spiritual truth and maturity. Even Paul was talking about, I'm not there yet. I haven't arrived. And this is Paul, but he's still not there because he's wanting to be like Christ. And then evaluate any incorrect thinking. Then the last two verses, Philippians 4:19, and my God will supply every need of yours according to his riches and glory in Jesus Christ. He's going to supply it all, always. There's no doubt. What he says he's going to do, he's going to do. So we're going to depend on that. And then 1 Thessalonians 5:16-22, rejoice always, pray without ceasing, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. Do not quench the spirit, do not despise the prophecies, test all things and hold fast what is good, and abstain from every form of evil. That pretty well sums it up. And it's just we gotta capture our thoughts and what's in our mind. Oh, I forgot about these. And just for enduring me these last couple weeks, there's a little. You can come look at it or pass it around. The river rocks. If you don't use it, you don't have to. But they're smooth. They kind of feel good. Anyway. Any thoughts? Any questions? Any other suggestions about capturing negative thoughts and how to fight against it? Thank you so much for being here. I hope y'all come back. It's going to be Miss Brenda will be leading us, and then Diane. So this class has been awesome. And actually, Catherine, I need to say thank you to. She's sort of the one that planted the seed and spearheaded a lot of this as well. If someone had asked, kind of the study guide to this class is Get Out of Your Head, okay? And this one actually focuses on Philippians and stuff. That's where Minding Your Minds came. Thank you. See y'all next week.